Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Murder, where I'll be talking about and reviewing an episode of Poirot, Murder, She Wrote, Diagnosis Murder, or Jonathan Creek. Today I'm looking at Murder, She Wrote, Trouble in Eden, or as I like to call it, that time Jessica became a madam. We begin the episode with a music cue straight out of Mrs. Santa Claus. And a place with this name and font choice, where Mary Rose tells Jessica that she woke up one night knowing her sister Charlotte was dead and received a note warning her not to trust anyone in Charlotte's hometown of Eden because she was murdered. She wants Jessica to go with her to investigate, seeing as Charlotte's body was swiftly cremated without her consent. And when she turns her down, Mary Rose insists she talk to her lawyer Lewis. Mary Rose goes to cross the street when a car tries to run her down, causing a crash, which puts her in the hospital and kills the driver. Lewis is now going to have to investigate by himself, but with no one in Eden having met Mary Rose, Jessica decides she's going to go in her place.
Now, that man behind the wheel was determined to kill you. Now, it's possible that he didn't want you to find out what had really happened to Charlotte.
Wait, I thought you just said no one knew who she was. Forget it. Mary Rose says it's too dangerous, but Jessica's like, bullshit, off we go. Where they get lost and ask this lady where Charlotte's hotel is, and she is outraged. Okay then. They make it there, and Lewis hates the building. Dude, this place is stunning. And they go inside and meet Lila, who says Charlotte was super kind and wants to take over the hotel. Jessica is like, that's nice, dear. And Lila acts weird when Lewis asks for a room, so she tells them to go wait in Charlotte's room, while she rings the local doctor to warn him, who rings someone else. Wow, this room is ugly. Lewis thinks so too, and then Martha the housekeeper shows up, equally jumpy that Lewis wants a room, but she also says Charlotte was very nice. Bye then.
This place is very strange.
The phone rings and it's Lila, who says the sheriff wants to see Jessica Rose right away and asks if she should keep running the hotel, which Jessica agrees to, before heading into town, passing CJ and meeting Sheriff Howard. Aw, look at the doggo picture! Anyway, Howard makes a big deal of saying Charlotte died of natural causes, so Jess questions why her body was cremated so quick, and then rushes out where she's spied on by CJ, Willard and Glenn, who are in a panic because she's snooping around. Jess returns to the hotel to hear music, and when she goes inside, she discovers that, yep, the hotel is actually a brothel. Nice dress, Lila! The pair escape upstairs, where Lewis reveals that Charlotte didn't have a will, or if she did, it's gone missing, and then Martha comes back, warning her not to trust anyone. And Jessica realizes that she wrote the note to begin with. Martha was out of town when Charlotte died, and there was nothing wrong with her heart, but she did have enemies, and reveals a trapdoor that is now missing its contents.
She wasn't only murdered, she was robbed.
Which included her will. It's also revealed that Charlotte was bribing the sheriff so he wouldn't shut down the brothel, but Jessica immediately tells Martha to boot out all the customers and gather the girls together, where she tells them the hotel will be shut for 3 days in Charlotte's memory, and she'll be staying to take over the place from now on. Yep, sweet Jessica Fletcher is now a madam, and Lila is pissed, so she calls the sheriff, who passes the news on to CJ. Jessica gets eyeballed by Dora from before her, and Rev Willard, who ushers her away. So Jess goes to see the doc, who rambles off some bullshit. And when Jess questions the cremation, Doc says it's what Charlotte wanted. But of course it's all crap. And she calls the doc out, who then rings CJ, who says he'll take care of it. When she gets back, Lila tells Jess she had a phone call from a Mrs. Fletcher, which of course is Mary, who says the guy who tried to run her down was Eddie, Lila's boyfriend, who of course is listening in. So Jess goes to comfort her. She says she didn't know where Eddie was going or what he was planning, so Jess goes hard on her about Charlotte's murder, and Lila kicks her out. So she goes to complain to the sheriff about one of his citizens trying to run her down, and that no one seems to accept Charlotte was murdered.
Doc says heart attack. That's good enough for me.
Jess gets back again to find CJ stinking the place up and wanting to buy the business off her. And they talk back and forth for a while about real estate or something, before CJ drops the bombshell that Doc accidentally killed one of his patients. Yep, that is the correct response. Lila is scared she's going to be fired, so she agrees to tell Jess what happened the night of Charlotte's death in exchange for her job. She says she was woken by a noise in the night and found Willard and Glenn carrying Charlotte's body out of the hotel, with Doc telling her she had a heart attack, but she says she saw what looked like blood on Charlotte's blanket. Whoa! that's some aggressive hedge trimming. Dora is very put out by the brothel and Jess apparently preying on her husband. Praying? Get it? Anyway, the sheriff rolls up, having checked out Jess's story, and calls her out for lying about her identity. Jess tries to explain and talks about Dora, but the sheriff isn't impressed.
Well, she's not knitting with both needles these days.
What a wonderful expression. And Jess says at least 4 men in town were being blackmailed by Charlotte. The Rev, the Doc, Glenn, and CJ. Howard seems surprised by all this and also denies taking a bribe. Instead claims that he was making charitable donations on Charlotte's behalf. And in exchange for accepting this, Jess asks him not to tell anyone she's not Mary Rose. Jess talks to Martha about potentially closing the hotel before Lewis presents her with roses from CJ, requesting a meeting at a mortuary. Huh, okay then. And Jess goes in alone, where she's greeted by all the blackmail victims. This is creepy. They plan to tell her what really happened, but warn that they'll deny it if she tries to snitch. So, Rev went to see Charlotte to make a blackmail payment and found her stabbed and called Doc, who says she was dead when he got there. But to protect them all, the heart attack story was made up by CJ, and Charlotte was taken to the mortuary where Glenn cremated her. And they don't seem to care who the murderer actually was. Nor do they want to know each other's secrets. Jessica tells them about Charlotte's missing stuff, which included the blackmail evidence, and says the sheriff is so sure one of them took it, he's going to search their homes, so they all split.
I take it the meeting is over now?
Jess rushes to the car and tells Lewis she needs to warn the sheriff, and CJ goes home to retrieve the box where he's of course caught by Jess and the sheriff, who knew it was him because he knew Doc's secret, despite them all insisting none of them knew anything. When Howard opens the box, he discovers that CJ wasn't actually being blackmailed, he was just being greedy, and was scamming people into buying phony real estate, including Charlotte, who called him out, so he stabbed her and stole the box. With the case solved, Jessica lies to Mary Rose about the murderer, saying it was a burglar, and the true nature of the hotel. But Mary Rose decides to go run it herself. Okay, so the big ha-ha of this episode was Jessica inadvertently becoming a madam of a brothel, which to be fair is pretty funny, but actually the mechanics of this episode are what really sell it to me. CJ is the obvious choice to be the killer, but it's so obvious that you start suspecting other people. First Lila, then Dora, and then I even considered Charlotte faked her death, before rolling back around again to CJ. The trail of clues were there to follow, with subtle but conflicting statements that were spaced out just enough to not be obvious. Like CJ saying the shopping mall wasn't happening, but Martha saying it was, and CJ revealing Doc's secret, even though Doc said no one else knew about it. You could work out the killer and the motive through the trail of clues, but gradually, not right away, and then essentially waiting for the episode to catch up. I also like the added touch of Jessica looking in the bookstore window, checking for one of her books that will give her identity away. That was cute. If you look into it, this episode has a lot going on with the brothel and the blackmail and the real estate scam and the like. But as a fan of the Cabot Cove episodes, having the events take place in a small town was comforting and helped contain the threads of the story from spreading too far and getting tangled. And side note, I love how Jessica doesn't give a shit. Her friend nearly gets killed and she still goes to the murder town to snoop around and goes alone to a meeting with every single suspect. What a boss. I'm not sure if we can really count Eddie. He was killed by his own stupidity. So our victim for this one is Charlotte Welsh, who was stabbed by our killer CJ Dobbs, who got too greedy and wanted to own all of Eden. So there you have it. That was Trouble in Eden. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot, or consider subscribing if you want more videos like this one. Alternatively, feel free to check out my other YouTube channels. Thank you so much for watching. I'll speak to you soon, and keep an eye out for clues.